Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada Lada Daine. Pralada Lada Daine. Hiranyakashipurvakshah. Hiranyakashipurvakshah. Shilatankanakalaye. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito Narsingho Parato Narsingho. Ito Narsingho Parato Narsingho. Yato Yato Yamitato Narsingho. Yato Yato Yamitato Narsingho. Pahir Narsingho Hridaye Narsingho. Pahir Narsingho Hridaye Narsingho. Narasinghamadhim Sharanam Prapade. Narasinghamadhim Sharanam Prapade. Tavakara Kamala Varenakam Adbhuta Shringam Kalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Narsinga Dev, Jaya Narsinga Dev, Jaya Narsinga Dev, Jaya Narsinga Dev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. You're on here soon. You're on coming. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Navalabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Gonitai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, entitled Karma Yoga, and verse 41. Here we go. Please repeat after me. Let's take the book. Tasmat tvam indriyani adau niyamya bharatarshaba papmanang prajahyenang jnana vijnana nashanam tasmat tvam indriyani adau niyamya bharatarshaba papmanang prajahyenang jnana vijnana nashanam tasmat tvam indriyani adau niyamya bharatarshaba papmanang prajahyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Please prose. Tasmat tvam indriyanadau niyamya bharatarshaba papmanam prajahyenam jnana vijnana nashanam tasmat tvam indriyani adau Niyamya Bharatarshaba Papmanam Prajahiyenam Jnana Vijnana Nashanam. Word for word. Tasmat, therefore. Tvam, you. Indriyani, senses. Adau, in the beginning. Niyamya, by regulating. Bharata Rishabha, O chief amongst the descendants of Bharat. Papmanam, the great symbol of sin. Prajahi, curb. He, certainly. Enam, this. Jnana, of knowledge. Vijnana, and scientific knowledge of the pure soul. Nashanam, the destroyer. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhicharanara Vrindam Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Purport. The Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very beginning so that he could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroys the urge for self-realization and specific knowledge of the self. Jnana refers to knowledge of self as distinguished from non-self, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnana refers to specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. It is explained thus in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.3.1. Jnanam paramaguhyam me yadvijnana samanvitam sarahasyam tat angam cha grihana gatitam maya. The knowledge of the self and Supreme Self is very confidential and mysterious. But such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with their various aspects by the Lord Himself. Bhagavad Gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self. The living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. So from the very beginning of one's life, one has to learn this Krishna consciousness, and thereby one may become fully Krishna conscious and act accordingly. Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So from any stage of life, or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord, and turn the lust into love of Godhead, the highest perfectional stage of human life. Om Jnana Timbrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swabudantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parichana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Behevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So it's a very nice verse to be able to talk on. I thank the seniors for allowing me to have this opportunity and ask for blessings from the devotees in the manor and devotees online also, that I can speak something of value and purification for myself, value for others and purification for myself. And we can only delve deeper into the mystics and the confidential secrets of Bhagavad Gita together, which is referred to in the purport. So, when I was researching for this verse, I really liked, first thing that came up is Krishna is preparing us. He's giving us all the information we need to defeat our own enemies. We've come into the world not knowing exactly what is right and wrong. And thankfully we've come into Krishna consciousness. And we've been given the purports of Srila Prabhupada. And this has given us the light of knowledge. And even though we know what is right, every day we still do things that are wrong. Even though we know what is to do and what is not to do, somehow we still end up doing things that are wrong. I'm not sure if anyone has experience, maybe it's just myself. So that is because there's jnana, but there's a lack of vijnana. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that jnana is given to us in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna himself as the distinction between matter and spirit, or that we as the body, we as the soul is different from the body, our covering. And then vijnana is the realized knowledge of that jnana, is that if we're not this body, then where should we repose our love to? Where should we repose our attention to? And that is the Supreme Spirit. So then Srila Prabhupada in the purport says, vijnana refers to specific knowledge of the Spirit Soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. So we can have some jnana, and it can help us to achieve a high state of bliss or, high state of consciousness. We can become detached. But without vijnana, we cannot come to the ultimate, as Srila Prabhupada says, the highest perfectional stage of human life. The aspect where we can turn our lust into love. So in today's presentation, I'd like to just talk about lust, where it comes from, and the weapons we're given to defeat it. And where can we find those weapons also? So just a background on lust. Lust can be referred to as any material desire that is distracting you from your original constitutional position. In my words, according to Srila Prabhupada's knowledge that he's given us. And then love is that action or that service which is done in favor of our constitutional position unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lust is mentioned as the lowest thing in the material world, and love is mentioned as the highest thing in the spiritual world. So in chapter 15, it talks about a banyan tree, and it says that the material world is like a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, the tree. So the highest thing on that tree, we can understand is the lowest thing in the reflection. That's why people like to have illicit sex and cheat. And that feeling of cheating is throughout this entire world. But the highest, on the opposite side, the highest feeling is complete pure love of Godhead, where Krishna is dancing with the gopis, and they are away from their husbands. So it's the same aspect, but instead of sense gratification, it's love for Krishna, is to please Krishna. So that's just lust and then love. Just to give an update or an understanding, at least what I have. And then we hear from the purport that jnana and vijnana, obviously it's easy to have some jnana. We can read the scriptures, read the Vedas, but the vijnana is only revealed to us in the heart. Vijnana is only revealed to us when we hear the words of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada said. And that is Krishna consciousness. When we understand from the Lord our constitutional position is in our relationship to Him, the vijnana aspect. We cannot understand our constitutional position in relation to the Lord through just jnana. So one theme I like to talk about is prevention is better than cure, or preparation is better than cure. Medicines, it's throughout the entire world right now. Modern medical system, that's their motto. As soon as you have an understanding that there are many, many diseases, everyone is promoting healthy well-being, healthy living, prevention. As soon as there's a little implication in a child that is not on the right course, lots of help is given by the society. You know, all these structures are there, depression, anxiety, lots of pills are there. The drug industry is huge. Mainly because they want to cure, but also they want to prevent anything from happening further on. So then we can also take that in our lives and prevent or prepare ourselves before we have to cure, I guess. So Krishna instructs the 3 sitting places of this lust is, does anyone remember from the last verse just yesterday? There's 3 sitting places of lust. Where are those 3 sitting places? Yeah? Yeah? Senses. So the 3 sitting places of lust is given in the last verse, 340, as senses, mind, and intelligence. That's where lust can attack us. That's where desires can attack us. Desires that are born from our previous lives, and desires that we're even accumulating right now. It seems that it goes from gross to subtle. We have the senses, and then higher or more subtler, more intricate is the mind, and even more intricate is the intelligence. And so in this verse, I was just reading it and I was talking to one devotee, and I said Krishna has given an entire understanding of lust in just the translation. I'll just read it again. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, In the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So I was just hearing, and he's given, there's 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why, how. And I was thinking, Krishna's given everything in one. So the where is done in the last verse. The sitting places are the senses, mind, and intelligence. Now who? He is addressing Arjuna, the best of the Bharatas. The best of the Bharat dynasty. And now he is talking about when. So the next W is when. And he says, in the very beginning, curb this great sin. So we can understand the battle is going to take place. We're going internally in this battle. But when should we start actually fighting? When should we start preventing this war or preparing for this war? And he says in the very beginning. So why to learn in the very beginning of one's life? Srila Prabhupada also mentions this in the purport. When we are a child, from ages 0 to 5, a lot of impressions are given to us. A lot of subtle things come into our emotions, and depending on our bringing up, depending on what we receive from those 5 years, determines the rest of our life. Also, not just that 5 years, also previous lives, desires that we accumulate after. But that 5 years is a huge help. Whatever we receive, if we receive Krishna consciousness in those 5 years, if we receive a lot of love in those 5 years, that will help us to develop a lot of good character and good qualities. It says in the purpose of Srila Prabhupada that from ages 0 to 5, the parent should give the child love. From ages 5 to 10, the parent should give the child discipline. And from 10 to 15, the parent should give the child freedom. So it's very nice to see, but it's also a little bit hard, because you can see in the world, parents, as soon as they get a child, maybe they take 3 months off work and they just take care of the child. And then suddenly the child goes into some kind of system and he gets taken care of by other people, not the parents, because parents are now too busy to give the child care and attention. They grow up in the world and they're confused. They don't have good character qualities because they're missing. It's like if a child didn't get any milk in the beginning of his life. He's missing all that nutrition. Similarly, there is the nutrition of love. That if you didn't get that love in the beginning, all this emotional security will not be there. And then discipline. So there's a lovely verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 4:12-23. Nanda and Sunanda, the 2 confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, they are talking to Maharaj Dhruv Maharaj. And they say, "Dear king, let there be lots of fortune on you. Let there be all fortune on you. Because only when you are 5 years old, you underwent austerities and thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead." So we can understand from this that you can start. And even Prahlad Maharaj, how old was he? He was 5 years old. So the intelligence at that time is very ripe for giving discipline, for giving Krishna consciousness. The intelligence will be built so strongly at that moment, and that training will help with the rest of life. You see devotees who go, who have devotee families, they're also given that very, very nice boost, that training, that good piety, that good loving facility of Krishna consciousness in the beginning. And no matter if they deviate, they will come back, because they have an understanding, they have the consciousness, they have been given the glasses of Krishna consciousness, and then they go throughout their lives and they see, okay, this is wrong, because they have the glasses of Krishna consciousness to see, okay, this is lust, this is sin, and they can make arrangements and changes. And even if they do, for example, myself, I was born in a devotee family, and reciting Bhagavad Gita and on all sorts, and we're having sanghas and good association. And I left Krishna consciousness. But that understanding of what is right and wrong still stayed with me. But I always chose the wrong idea, or I always chose the wrong action. Until it was so far, then I had to understand, okay, I have these glasses, I'm not making any use of it, but those glasses were still with me. That Krishna consciousness that I was given by my parents, that kind of understanding what is right and wrong, was still with me, thankfully. And then I could act on that and choose appropriately, only when I had a reason to. Third class intelligence, after a lot of suffering. In the beginning, we can choose, okay, we have the glasses, okay, now let's act. Shabda Praman, highest intelligence. Just by hearing, we can understand what to do. And then the second class intelligence, just by seeing someone make a mistake, we can say, okay, that was wrong, I'm not going to do that. And then third class intelligence is through the experience. But even though these three intelligences are there, the glasses of Krishna consciousness are very, very powerful in the beginning of one's life. So if we don't prepare in that way, we can see from a lot of examples, Srila Prabhupada brings up an old men in the hospitals. What are they doing? Well, at least one example that he saw in the hospital. He saw this old man, and he was about to die. He was in his deathbed, and he was just staring at the nurse. And he made a lecture, or he made a lot of understanding for the disciples who were also with him. And he says, even if you can't curb this great symbol of lust, it will be with you the whole life. And even he's not satisfied. He's on his deathbed, and he's not satisfied. He's still after this lusty business. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says you have to make sure that you curb this great symbol as quickly as you can. Even if you're late in Krishna consciousness, no problem. We can see so many examples when, I don't want to give names, but we can see after understanding the importance of Krishna consciousness, even a person who's had a lot of experience in the material world, he can still regulate his senses. He can still practice devotional service. He can still practice Vedic Bhakti and control that great symbol of lust. If they don't, then we can see there's a lot of regret in the world. You can see many wise old people. They have a lot of knowledge for us because they're used to understanding what regret feels like. The main kind of comments that come out when you're in like a care home, they give a lot of wise statements. But with those wise statements, it's because they also regret not doing those things in the past. They worked too hard in their life, for example. They didn't give enough time to their family. They didn't give enough time to love their children. They didn't have enough time to change their own character, develop on themselves, or do things that make them happy, do things that they really wanted to do, take off their bucket list. So if we can't prepare and we can't come to that stage, we will have a lot of regrets in the later part of our life. So we can, right now, as we got the opportunity of Krishna consciousness, go really, really strong, really, really hardcore, dedicate our complete self and not have any regrets. Because we can say, okay, I safely tried my entire best to curb this great sin lust. We can safely say, I tried my best. That, as Srila Prabhupada said, trying your best, that's sincerity. That's enough. Because attitude is much more important than ability when it comes to Krishna consciousness. But in the material world, it's all about ability over attitude. Krishna can see our attitude, and then he will give us that vigyan. In the Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chittete Koriya Aikya. I think that's the one where. Yeah, second one. And basically the spiritual master, seeing that you're trying so hard, seeing your determination, he will reveal that knowledge in your heart. It doesn't matter about ability at all. It's good to have some qualification. I can do this for you, I can do this for you. But a sincere student, the teacher will really see that and then give the mercy. So then we can understand this great symbol of lust. is sin. A great symbol of sin is lust. Sorry. And there's lovely text in Bhagavad Gita 3:37. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajaguna Samudbhavaha Mama Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyanam Ehavairinam. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, O Arjuna, which is born of the contact of the mode of passion, and then later is transformed into anger, and it's known as the all-devouring enemy of this entire world. So in the purports of the last verse, we understand that lust is never satisfied. Lust you can compare to a fire, which burns like fire, it's destructive. But we can understand that no matter how much we try and fulfill our desires, the fire, what does it want? Wood. It wants fuel. And so, okay, we listen. We listen to that desire. We listen to our mind. We listen because our intelligence is corrupted the wrong way. It's been bribed. Our intelligence has been bribed by Maya. So now our thoughts are just about how to gratify our senses. And so we add wood and wood and wood to try and satisfy that fire, at least in my life, and it never gets satisfied. It only creates more destruction. It burns like fire. It only causes the rustling of the leaves nearby to also catch fire, other trees to burn, and suddenly you're in samsara dava naralita loka. You need a spiritual master. That's why he's there. He's getting that benediction. He's giving us that benediction because he's trying to extinguish the fire of our conditioned life. That's why samsara dava in this fiery world. So then we can see from the purport that it's pointing towards regulating the senses and being confident enough to do that also. Utsahan nishtaya dairyat tatat karma pravartanat. We have the utsahan, enthusiasm to carry on, and the only way we can have enthusiasm is nishtayat, confidence. We have confidence in the process. And that also helps when we have a lot of patience. These three things, they really, they work together. We can't have one without the other. It's confidence in the process that gives us patience. And only when we can be patient can we be enthusiastic about that activity. We can start jumping in kirtan because we know the result is going to come to us later on. And it's also very easy to regulate the senses more than regulate the intelligence, because it's so subtle. The intelligence is so subtle. Even regulating the mind, Arjuna says, it's more difficult to control the mind than to control the wind. So then Krishna makes it a little bit easier. Okay, regulate what you can see, the senses, the body, the hands. You use it in such a way that the external changes you make in life affect internally, instead of affecting internally and then that would change external. Like when we're angry, we can either act on that anger, manasakrodha vegam, or we can take a deep breath. That deep breath is an external change we're making in the body to calm down an internal mood. And suddenly, as soon as we do that, we feel calm. Just because we made an external change, our internal mood has changed. So similarly, Vedic Bhakti works in the same way. We change our activities externally, and it can purify us internally. Like Bill Mangala Thakur, it's not something we should do, but he cut out his eyes. That's how he could, finally get that control. So just to give examples. How? For him who has conquered the mind is the best friend. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So we need a lot of motivation. We don't like enemies in our life. And without knowing the why, there's no need to talk about the how. How do you do this? How do I become a better person? How do I get these good qualities? First, you need to know why. Why should you be that person? Why do you need those good qualities? Why do you need surrender? Why to be humble? And then naturally, because of your own desire and your prayer to Krishna, and Krishna consciousness, as Srila Prabhupada says, naturally these qualities will come. But just to there's no need to talk about how to become this person, how to do this. The why to chant attentively will give you the how. That why, that determination, when you answer that why, will give you the intelligence, and then you can do the how. It's not how and not have a reason why to chant attentively. I want to chant attentively, but I don't know why. So the first comes why. And that's why Krishna says, this lust is the destroyer of knowledge, the destroyer of Gyan and Vigyan. You could do so much in Krishna consciousness, you could do so much in spirituality, but this lust will destroy that. All your efforts, one slight deviation, as Srinivas Prabhu always says, spiritual life is like a razor's edge. Little bit off, you cut yourself. Prabhupada says, sorry, Srinivas Prabhu, Prabhupada says. I never heard that one from Srila Prabhupada, sorry, I have to quote. There's this, see, this is it. Just before I finish off, this is a battle plan. We have things that we need to protect, our Vigyan and Jnana. We have things that we need to attack, the greatest enemy, the symbol of sin, lust. We have when to begin, in the beginning, immediately when you know, begin. And then you have who? Yourself. You're that person who is. And then I think that was it. Yeah, and then there's the what, the curb. I looked up curb on Google. It's just restraint. You restrain that great symbol of lust. You reduce its effect. And in Krishna consciousness, we know the greatest way to reduce that symbol of sin is Krishna consciousness, sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi bhakti, chanting, fasting, reading books, getting that vigyan, getting that knowledge back. So I'll finish off here and say that for me at least, which has helped me most, is association in my life and trying to go deeper in japa. These two things, without devotees and without determination in japa, no matter the success, it's never successful. Even the pure devotees think they can't chant properly, let alone it's relieving. Now, Brahmananda Swami Maharaj, I believe he said that the greatest, the most difficult service he ever got from Srila Prabhupada is not preaching, traveling around the world, is not building temples, is not becoming a GBC, it's chanting properly. So we can just see how much we need to grow. So I'll just finish off with Mahamantra. If everyone would like to please join me and defeat this enemy of lust together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'll take any questions or comments. Hare Krishna. I think the switch is.
Yeah, when you were talking about the banyan tree and how the top becomes the bottom in the material world, it was reminding me of sort of psychological studies they'd done. It was really interesting because they thought things like anger and anxiety and these sort of traits were hereditary. So they did some studies and they say, well, there's a certain gene in all these people. You get full of people. I say maybe 10 of them are angry. They've all got a certain gene. So therefore, it must be hereditary. But then other people did some more research and they saw, actually, the people who are in this angry one, the people who share the same genes are those who are really angry, are those who are really agreeable. Because the gene that they share is actually sensitivity. Therefore, the environment that they were raised in, because they're more sensitive, it's had a bigger impact upon them if the people who were raised by the loving families were more sensitive, became even more agreeable and friendly, and those that are raised in an angry environment became even more angry themselves. So it's the same principle, but just in a different environment, goes to more extremes, which is, it seems the case in a lot of things. That's what it made me think of. Thank you.
Thank you for that. It's interesting.
Prabhupada said, did you have lust? And Prabhupada says, as soon as you get the material body, lust is there. Prabhupada said, I had no time to contemplate lust. Because that's the secret. Although reminding Krishna, lust will disappear in time. That's the best.
Stay busy. Thank you.
Thank you for your class, Prabhu. So from the previous verse, we learned that lust is even within intelligence as well, which is quite a startling thing. Because we think that the intelligence is our last line of defense in terms of making the right or wrong decision. So knowing that that's contaminated by lust, how can we know if we're making the right or wrong decision if that lust is there within our intelligence? How can we trust our intelligence?
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. And actually, we can't trust our intelligence. Our intelligence is it's given to us. That facility is given to us to discriminate right and wrong. It's actually there. I was just reading today that it's there to protect us from Maya. But the thing is, Maya has bribed the intelligence. So it's like the guard has, got bribed. He has different intentions now. And as soon as that intelligence has been bribed, it's like the heart has been bribed, then everything else kind of changes. The mind gets affected, the senses gets affected. So actually we have to neglect that side of the intelligence. We have to neglect it because we can understand that's discriminating in a way for my sense gratification. Just as you go into the shop and the intelligence, if it's a good intelligence, it will say, if you have diabetes, not to take the chocolate. And then the mind will say, I want it. But depending on how contaminated the intelligence is, the mind will also be contaminated. If you have a very bad intelligence or very weak intelligence, you can be easily overcome by the mind. So actually we can't, in our state of mind, in our state of conditioned life, rely on our intelligence so much. And that is why we're given by Srila Prabhupada, Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. That becomes our glasses, that becomes our spectacles of intelligence. That's the new intelligence we have to discriminate what we see. And if it's in line, if our conditioned intelligence is slowly, we can see it's not in line with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, then we have to realign it and make a new foundation of an intelligence. That's why reading Srila Prabhupada's books is so valuable. It gives us that vigyan, the why. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, like Chakshugyan.
Chakshugyan, yeah. The vigyan, hriday prakashito. I said the wrong thing. It's hriday prakashito. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
It was just not really a deep question, but it's just I wasn't sure what Vijnana meant.
Yeah, good. I'll just read from the purport. So, Jnana refers to knowledge of the self as distinguished from non-self, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnana refers to specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. In Bhakti Shastra, we also get a nice understanding of the difference between Gyan and Vigyan. Gyan, you can say, is knowledge. Gyanis, they just mentally speculate. They just read books and they try and do a lot of austerities in seclusion. But Vigyan refers to realized knowledge. That state where you know it, but now you understand and are applying that knowledge. So the Gyanis, they're reading books, but they're not doing devotional service to the Lord. They're not in the temples. They're not worshipping the deity. Even though in the Vedas it may say, practice doing devotional service. So they know it. They know that devotional service potentially is the right way to go, but they haven't got the Vigyan to actually apply it. That takes a lot of realization. As soon as you have Vigyan, your activities will change. If you say, I've realized something today, but you still commit the same error, then it's not realized. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Jai Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.